Why, hello, what's up, you beautiful people? It's GleeCon, and I'm back again with another episode of Lore of Warcraft. Thanks for tuning in. Last time we checked, we signed off. We were doing the Alterac Mountains Alliance character. Oh, and a day which will live in infamy for me. In my ignominious defeat of the prediction, I was an arrogant fool. I was wrong, and I was just relegated to having to act like the peasantry. And rather than figuring out some master plan, I had to just camp it like all of us other slobs out there. And I did that. So on the next episode, we will be able to cover that quest, the Elusive Syndicate Assassins quest. I have that for us all lined up for tomorrow's episode. For tonight, we're going to do one of our weekly shorts, the exploration of the now defunct World of Warcraft Encyclopedia, preserved for hopefully all time by the great people at Wowpedia. Last time we were doing this, we read about Illidan's Stormrage. And this time we're going to read about his twin brother, Malfurian Stormrage. We've also read about the Night Elves in general, the Trolls in general, and I also Cenarius. Maybe one more, I'm forgetting him. Okay, here we go. It says that Malfurian is the fraternal twin of Illidan Stormrage, and like his brother, grew up as the friend of Tyrande Whisperwind, millennia before the Great Sundering. One day, Malfurian came across several legends that referenced a reclusive demigod of the forests. Malfurian had always had great reverence for the natural world, although the Night Elves, as a race, had long since abandoned any interest in such matters. He shared the legend of Cenarius with Illidan and Tyrande. The three Night Elves decided that it would be an exciting adventure to search for the demigod, though, in truth, they no more believed in Cenarius than the rest of their people did. It wasn't long before scattered plants and animals of Azeroth brought tidings of these Night Elves to Cenarius. Surprised and intrigued, Cenarius located the Night Elves and looked into their hearts. He saw great promise in Malfurian, a promise that made up Cenarius' mind. The laughing trio was shocked into silence when Cenarius stepped out of a shadowed thicket. He introduced himself and offered to teach them the druidic arts. They accepted eagerly. Malfurian proved a quick and talented student, but his brother was clumsy and quickly grew impatient. For her part, Tyrande was already a novice in the Sisterhood of Elune, and so had dedicated herself to the goddess above all others. Malfurian alone would go on to become a druid. Now, I worry because of some of the titles of these subheadings here, these other entries, that maybe there's definitely going to be some overlap. Is it going to be verbatim? I'm not sure. I probably won't be able to remember enough to know. We're going to read it anyway, but there's a chance. The invasion of the Burning Legion. Malfurian made significant progress in his studies before he was assailed by a disturbing vision. The Highborn were abusing the Well of Eternity's magics. The vision gave him the strong conviction that Queen Azshara and her high-ranking spellcasters would bring about a catastrophe unless someone intervened. The Night Elf brought his concerns to Cenarius, who was greatly worried. Even so, the Night Elves realized what was happening too late. Demons poured out of the royal palace and began to slaughter everything in their path. The War of the Ancients had begun. Illidan was quickly given increased responsibilities due to his mastery of arcane magic. Even so, he seemed increasingly moody and discontent as the war progressed. One day, he abruptly left the Night Elf host and allied himself with the Burning Legion. He would later rejoin the Night Elf defenders, claiming that double-crossing the Legion had been his plan all along. Still, Malfurian and many other Night Elves would forever afterward doubt his loyalties. In the meantime, Cenarius taught Malfurian all he could of the druidic arts, and then departed to seek out the other demigods of Azeroth. He argued that they had a responsibility to save Azeroth from the Legion, but the demigods were unaccustomed to the idea of working together. As a result, it took no little persuasion from Cenarius before they finally rode to the battlefront. All of that takes place in the War of the Ancients trilogy. That's really almost the entire trilogy in a nutshell. At least like the first 2.5 books. A father's sacrifice. The leader of the Night Elf army, Captain Jared Shadowsong, readily accepted the demigod's offer of assistance, and the tide of battle seemed to shift. Reacting to the new and powerful threat, the vast demonic army refocused its attacks, and soon the mighty demigods were overwhelmed. Cenarius was badly wounded by the time Malorn charged up and drove back his son's attackers with a few sweeps of his massive antlers. The Night Elves scrambled into action, pulling the unconscious Cenarius to safety. Malorn easily held the demons off for a time. Then Archimonde came forth and engaged the giant stag in single combat, ultimately snapping Malorn's neck. Malfurian was furious and grieved. He called roots out of the ground to attack the Demon Lord. As the plants tightened their stranglehold on the demon's massive form, Archimonde was forced to teleport away in order to escape. Again, Book 3. The Betrayer. Ysera's dragonflight helped Cenarius enter the Emerald Dream, where the green dragons ministered to his injuries. In the meantime, well, maybe that wasn't Book 3. Maybe that happened all in Book 2. In the meantime, the Night Elves kept fighting. Malfurian played a key role in closing the portal that the Highborn had opened over the Well of Eternity, thereby thwarting Sargeras, the Dark Titan, in his attempt to enter Azeroth. The Well's magics had been badly abused during the war, and the portal's closure proved too great a strain. The Well imploded, triggering the Great Sundering. Ancient Kalimdor split apart into several landmasses, and a new ocean was born. Its cold waters chased the surviving Night Elves and their allies all the way to Mount Hyjal before finally subsiding. The weary refugees rested and tended to their wounds. Only Illidan set out immediately to scout the area, and he promptly located a lake and transformed it into a second Well of Eternity. A small group of Night Elves caught him in the act, and he attacked them. Fortunately, Malfurian arrived only moments later and captured his brother. Illidan predicted that one day the demons would return to Azeroth, and he claimed that arcane magic was the only effective tool against them. Yet Malfurian feared that Illidan's so-called altruism actually masked his true motive. Illidan hungered for magic and gave little thought to the cost. Jared left Illidan's punishment to Malfurian, who felt it would be the height of folly to leave Illidan free to continue his reckless pursuit of power. Thus, with Cenarius' help, Malfurian sealed Illidan within a vast underground barrow prison, there to remain chained and powerless until the end of time. So I'm thinking, based on reading this is not a verbatim copy and paste. I think they're attempting to tell it from the other side. But they're kind of trapped in their chronicles narrative voice here, so it's not as maybe diverse or as differentiated as I would like. Seclusion of the Night Elves. The dragons learned of the second well and grew a massive tree atop it in order to keep its power from being abused. This world tree prevented the well from becoming any stronger, and it gave the Night Elves a number of gifts, including continued immortality. Oh, that's a nice little side perk. It also linked the well to the Emerald Dream, whose tempering influence was intended to protect the well's powers from being abused and prevent the well from growing any more powerful. With the war over, Tyrande and Malfurian reached an understanding. Their deep love for one another gave them solace throughout the long process of restoring order to the devastated Night Elf populace. Tyrande, now High Priestess of Elune and Malfurian's mate, implemented sweeping changes throughout Night Elf society. She organized a new all-female army, the Sentinels, and decreed that it would be directed by the Sisterhood of Elune. Nobility and sorcery were now considered the relics of a decadent and shameful past. Nevertheless, the Highborn refused to give up practicing arcane magic. After discussing the matter at length, Tyrande and Malfurian made the difficult decision to exile their defiant kin. In the wake of the Highborn's departure, the remaining Night Elves deliberately withdrew from the rest of the world. A veil of mist descended upon their entire continent, shrouding its presence from passing sailors. Meanwhile, Cenarius went to dwell nearby in the Moonglade of Mount Hyjal, and Malfurian continued to study under the demigod's tutelage. A number of Night Elf men joined Malfurian in studying the druidic arts, many of them former members of the Moon Guard. Malfurian began teaching them, and he eventually established the Cenarian Circle, Azeroth's druidic organization. He was soon given the rank of Archdruid due to his great knowledge and power, and the group chose him to be their leader. The Druids spent much of their time walking the wilds of Azeroth, meditating in the Emerald Dream, and trying to heal the damage that the war had caused. Okay. That was a new kind of nugget that we got. New races arrive in Kalimdor. Time passed and a new race had arrived on Azeroth, the Orcs, who originated on the planet Draenor. Under the influence of demons, the Orcs had changed from a peaceful shamanic society into the bloodthirsty horde. They waged war upon the humans of the Eastern Kingdoms and killed countless other creatures during the First and Second Wars. Yet Cenarius and the Night Elves did not emerge from their seclusion, for they knew nothing of any events that occurred outside Kalimdor. The Second War ended badly for the Orcs, and the horde was shattered. Just before the Third War, a new Orc war chief emerged, Thrall, who reformed the horde and led his people across the sea to establish their own homeland on Kalimdor. This new horde had no desire for further warfare. The Orcs simply wanted to leave the human lands behind and find a place to call their own. A la Christopher Columbus. A demigod slain. The Orcs did not receive a warm welcome on Kalimdor. The Night Elves dispatched a number of scouts post-haste, and the scouts returned with frightening stories of the orcs' past atrocities during the First and Second Wars. In the meantime, the orcs chopped down a great many trees in Kalimdor, clearly intending to establish a settlement. Cenarius became certain that the orcs had returned to their warlike ways. He called an army of treants out of the forests, and he led the Night Elves and the treants against a large group of orcish intruders. The newborn horde would surely have been crushed, save for the fact that several agents of the Burning Legion had recently arrived on Azeroth. The Legion had not forgotten the might of Cenarius, and they were determined to see him defeated. At the Dreadlord Tychondrius' suggestion, the Pit Lord Manaroth spilled his blood into a pool of water, and the resulting corruption was soon detected by the Horde's troll witch doctors. Led by Grom Hellscream, the orcs drank of the pool's tainted waters and reveled in the return of their demon-granted power. Overcome with supernatural hate and rage, Grom and his warriors succeeded in killing Cenarius. With the demigod dead, they went on to corrupt the ancient forest. I think that's one of the most messed up things that's happened in Warcraft lore, is the killing of Cenarius. Awakening of the Druids. Lady Jaina Proudmoore helped Thrall bring Grom back to his senses, and Grom killed Manaroth, freeing the orcs from their demonic curse. Nonetheless, the damage had been done and the corruption was spreading. The Legion began invading the forests in greater numbers, and soon Tyrande and her sentinels encountered the marauding demons. The return of the Burning Legion was the Night Elves' worst fear. Tyrande and her warriors knew they would need all the help they could get to defeat the demonic army. The women fought their way to the Horn of Cenarius, and Tyrande used it to wake Malfurian from hibernation. He had been walking the dream for 1,000 years. Malfurian and Tyrande entered the Barrow Dens in search of further druids who needed awakening. In the process, they happened upon the door to Illidan's prison. Tyrande said that surely Illidan's long imprisonment had been more than adequate punishment for his past deeds. Moreover, she argued that Illidan's abilities were being wasted in prison, when he could be helping fight the Burning Legion as he had so long ago. I mean, she's not wrong. Rise of a Dark Power. Although Malfurian tried to dissuade her, Tyrande entered the prison and freed Illidan. Unhappy with her decision, but unable to stop her, Malfurian went on to wake the rest of the sleeping druids, and then he met up with Tyrande. She told him that Illidan had agreed to help fight the Legion. With deep misgivings, Malfurian followed her to the forests of Felwood, where she had left his twin. Illidan had not been idle in Tyrande's absence. He had stolen a magical artifact that the Legion had been using to corrupt Felwood, the Skull of Gul'dan. Rather than simply destroy the skull, Illidan had consumed its power, which instantly transformed him into a demon. He had then used his newfound might to destroy the Dreadlord Tychondrius. When Malfurian and... That's actually a very cool mission in the game. When Malfurian and Tyrande arrived, Illidan explained that the forest would heal now that the skull had been destroyed. In Classic, it still hasn't. The demon's weak attempt at self-justification did not deceive either of the horrified Night Elves. Malfurian, who still bore the responsibility of determining Illidan's punishment, disavowed all kinship with the demon, and sentenced him to exile from all Night Elf lands. The Battle of Mount Hyjal. Journeying to Mount Hyjal, the Night Elves joined forces with Jaina Proudmoore's army and Thrall's horde. Together, the three armies delayed the Demon Lord Archimonde long enough for Malfurian and the other druids to lay a trap. When Archimonde at last reached the tree and Well of Eternity it protected, the druids empowered the World Tree with the Night Elves' immortality and the energies of countless Night Elf spirits. The tree gave off a massive burst of energy that killed Archimonde instantly. Without their commander, the Burning Legion forces remaining on Azeroth crumbled under the combined might of the Horde, human and Night Elf armies, and thus ends Warcraft 3, the original. Pursuit of Justice. The Night Elf's sacrifice had saved Azeroth, but it had left them mortal. Nevertheless, Warden Maiev Shadowsong remained determined to recapture her former prisoner Illidan, or die trying. She took most of the other Watchers with her on her quest, and the group pursued Illidan into the tomb of Sargeras. The vengeful demon had not forgotten his former jailers. Having acquired the Eye of Sargeras, he turned its destructive power on the tomb's stone walls. The Watchers were trapped in one section of the tomb, with seawater beginning to flood the area. Only Maiev managed to escape and make it back to her base camp. She sent a messenger to Malfurian to ask for help and warn him about Illidan's activities. Malfurian and Tyrande both came to Maiev's rescue, and then Malfurian left the two women alone so that he could commune with the troubled land. He was angry and bewildered to find that Illidan and a group of Naga were channeling a spell that was tearing Northrend apart. Emerging from the forest, he went to warn the other Night Elves of this calamitous news. Brothers reunited. To Malfurian's anguish, Maiev said that Tyrande had been killed while escorting Prince Kael'thas the Sunstrider and his Blood Elves to safety. She added that Tyrande wouldn't have been in this dangerous situation in the first place if not for Illidan. Sorry, my watch was very tight. The reminder that filled Malfurion with fury, and he, Maiev, and the Blood Elves tracked down Illidan and put an end to his dangerous spell. It was then that Malfurion learned two crucial facts. First, Illidan had been trying to defeat a shared enemy, the Lich King. Second, Maiev had lied. Tyrande was likely still alive, and if so, surely in desperate need of aid. Illidan volunteered to find and rescue Tyrande. After some argument, Malfurion conceded that the Naga would be far quicker to reach Tyrande, given the fact that she'd been swept down the river Aravas. Then, too, it was obvious that despite having become a demon, Illidan still loved Tyrande. When Illidan returned from his mission with Tyrande alive and well, Malfurion was overjoyed. Illidan had caused a great deal of destruction and suffering, but his rescue of Tyrande made it impossible for Malfurion to return his brother to prison or sentence him to death. Hence, Malfurion chose to let Illidan go free, though Malfurion warned the demon never to threaten the Night Elves again. Isn't that weird how things work? And I think we work that way as people a lot. You can threaten the entire human race, but if you save my boo, the scales are balanced. Illidan opened a portal to Outland, and Maiev arrived just as Illidan departed. Without hesitation, Maiev and her ragged band of followers entered the portal as well. Malfurion was left to pray that in her fanatical pursuit of Illidan, Maiev would not cause more havoc than the demon himself. She's one of the coolest characters in Warcraft. I really like her a lot. Maiev, that is. A new world tree. Claiming that the Night Elves' immortality could be restored, Archdruid Fandral Staghelm recently proposed growing a second world tree. Though the dragons had refused to assist in the process, Malfurion flatly refused. He argued that without the blessing of the dragonflights, the tree would be an abomination. When Malfurion fell into a mysterious coma, Fandral became the new leader of the Druids. His first act was to persuade the rest of the Cenarian Circle to grow the second world tree, which they named Teldrassil. Contrary to Fandral's hopes, though, the new world tree has not restored the Night Elves' immortality, and as you can tell from questing all throughout the area also, something rotten is definitely taking place within. Final entry, Dream Without End. The cause of Malfurion's condition has yet to be determined. Tyrande was the one who discovered his comatose body in his barrow den in the Moonglade. Deeply concerned, she sent for the Cenarian Circle and for several other Sisters of Elune. The Druids inform her that Malfurion was last known to be meditating, and that there was no sign that intruders had violated the Moonglade. So it's not something physical that has smote him down, and I'm not gonna, I'm gonna cop to this. I don't really remember what has happened to him. I do remember he at some point wakes up, but I don't remember why, how. I am curious to see that part of the story unfold. Upon further investigation, the Druids remained baffled. Malfurion's dream form had somehow become separated from his body. The Cenarian Circle has repeatedly tried and failed to call his spirit back to his physical form. The Circle has also attempted to contact him in the Emerald Dream to no avail. At last, the Druids appealed to Ysera, but even she could not find Malfurion. It seems clear that he is lost in the Emerald Dream. The Sisters of Elune could not lend any further information about Malfurion's condition or a possible remedy for it. They could only determine that his body was perfectly healthy. All they've been able to do for him is place enchantments on his body to keep it in good health while he is comatose. Even though, is he still immortal? I don't know. I mean, their lack of immortality still allows them to live like dragon-like amount of time. The Cenarian Circle has decided that it would be best to leave Malfurion's body where it was found, in his barrow den in the Moonglade. So, also, I wasn't 100%, or else I forgot he was there in Moonglade. The general consensus is that Malfurion's spirit has the best chance of locating his body if the body is not moved. Also, of course, the Moonglade is somewhat more conducive to druidic magic than a large city like Darnassus. As ruler of the Night Elves, Tyrande spends most of her time in Darnassus. I wonder if there's a tie there. I wonder if this is somehow... It's either got to be related to maybe the Burning Crusade, or it's tied to the corruption of Teldrassil. Nevertheless, she secretly visits the Moonglade from time to time in order to check on Malfurion. The Cenarian Circle and several priestesses of Elune are tending to his body, but his condition has shown no signs of improvement. For the most part, Malfurion's mysterious ailment has been kept a secret except for the highest-ranking members of the Sisters of Elune and the Cenarian Circle. Nevertheless, there has been a great deal of speculation regarding his noticeable absence from the public eye. I feel like you'd need like a lore check 25 or something on D&D to get that one done. All right, so that was actually a long one, and it was a completely different rephrasing. I wonder, like, do different people write these different entries? Because imagine trying to write that same narrative from like this slightly different perspective, or maybe it's like your like rambling granddad telling the same story for the 20th time, or me for that matter, on some of my episodes, and it's the same story but different, you know. All right, everybody, we have another episode of the Pipe 5x5. You'll see me tomorrow with a little bit of a redemption. And you know what? Hey, thanks, everyone, for watching, for tuning in. If you liked it, check out, like, subscribe, but also check out the Patreon. There's a couple free episodes on there, but I've been doing Lore of Assassin's Creed. Yesterday, I created a new video where we just finished the last main zone of the first Assassin's Creed, and next week we'll be setting up the finale of that first game. So that's going to drop, and then I'll probably put another sampler, teaser, free one out on Patreon, too, to start the next game. Thanks, everyone, so much. Again, see you guys next time on Lore of Warcraft.